Good evening. Good evening to all of you. I hope you can I hope you can hear me. Can anybody just give me
Yeah,
a
can hear
comment if
you.
you can hear me?
Can hear you perfectly.
Like, Shelley, I don't hear you. Oh, okay, good. Okay, great. All right. So I am recording because there are a number of people that asked me to do that. I would ask you if you're with us and you're not on mute to please mute yourself. And and I just want to welcome you. Um, I'm unclear. Wait, hold on. Speaker view. Okay. I want to welcome you to the launch of Adrift from the Nations. I am so delighted to have you with us. So, my name's Rivka Lambert Adler, and I have been documenting the Torah awakening among non-Jews for about the last 10 years or so, since 2014. I published my first book on the topic in 2017. Some of you who are here tonight might have even been at that book launch in Jerusalem. Tonight's book is best understood as part of a series of books that are intended to document this process that the world is going through to tell the story of the Torah awakening among non-Jews in all of its dimensions. For those of you who are not familiar with me or my previous work in the field, I want you to know a couple of things. I am an Orthodox Jewish woman. I am married to an Orthodox rabbi. I live in Israel. I am what is known in the
Isn't
Orthodox
that
Jewish world as a
funny?
BT, as
Oh,
a Balat
sorry.
Tshuva, which means that I was born Jewish, but I was raised more or less secular, and I only became interested in Judaism in a serious way when I was a young adult. So I have never been a Christian. The closest, a lot of people don't know this part of what I'm about to tell you. The closest I've ever come to Christianity was when I joined, I went to a public high school in South Florida and I
Right,
joined a Southern
right.
Baptist Bible study group in high school. And I went to a
No,
few of
there
their
are no
meetings
look,
and I
you
went to
can
church with them
guarantee a
once or
paid
twice.
review. You can.
But
There's
somewhere
no two
deep
ways
in
about
my
it.
soul,
I'm just
I
not
understood that
of
as a
that
Jew,
mind.
that Christianity
Right,
wasn't the
exactly.
right
Like for
path for
example,
me.
on the other
Whoever's not
book,
muted, please do
I
mute
had
yourself.
ChatGPT write a
Um,
review. I did. I had
anyway,
it write a
so
review.
I
But you know what I
understood
wrote?
that
ChatGPT wrote this review. I mean,
Christianity
I wasn't.
wasn't right for me,
I'm
but it took me
perfectly
more than a
transparent
decade
in this
after that to
because
discover
that's
this
Rivka, we can't
unnamed
hear you. We can't
spiritual.
hear you
Uh,
because somebody isn't muted.
you can mute everybody. As the host, you can go into
oh
your
interesting.
hosting capacity and mute everybody. Okay. So anyone who might have forgotten.
I'm going to pause here for a second because we seem to
Right.
be having a little technical
Well, so
difficulty.
that no, but that's actually a really good point that you bring up is that when you're with a publishing house, your editor will speak with some of the other clients that they have.
All right.
You know what I mean?
It's somebody
Yeah,
named Tammy
exactly.
All right.
Ellison.
And
Somebody.
they'll
Tammy
receive
Ellison,
endorsements.
Tammy
I
Ellison,
know.
can you please mute
I know.
Tammy Ellison?
Okay.
I'd love
Hopefully
to
that.
send it to him, but you said he was having such problems.
All right.
She didn't.
Hopefully that took care
Rivka,
of.
go into
Yeah, she's.
more and as the host again, mute everybody. Do you know what I'm talking about down on the
Yeah, I'm
bottom?
in
It's
more host
okay.
tools.
You should be
Um,
able to.
I, I, yeah, yeah.
The
Maybe go into
other
participants, click on participants,
Oh.
and maybe at the top of that it'll say mute all.
one.
all right. It's quiet now, so I was just in the middle of this really great story, so I'm hoping that I'm hoping that it'll be okay. I can't figure out how to do that, but um,
Right.
do are we still hearing some background noise, or are you just hearing me?
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's pretty much in
It's
your
her.
face. I
It's
mean,
Tammy Ellison.
I
She's
mean
on
for
a
the
phone
most
call
part, yeah, I
and
mean the
she's
book was
talking. So
really
that's
written
why it's
after
quiet
October
at
7th
times,
with
and then
all
we
of
hear her
that,
talking. But
yeah,
she's talking.
everything with everything that,
Rivka asked Tammy Ellison to please.
I think I just
She
muted her.
did. She did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So let me just go back to this high school experience where I was hanging around with Christians, but I understood that that wasn't the path for me, and that my own unnamed spiritual longing was leading me to discover what was in fact my own heritage. I'm telling you all this because tonight's book, Adrift Among the Nations, between Christianity and Torah, is all about spiritual journeys. It's all about following a path to connect with God, even though that path can be scary, even though that path is unknown, even though that path comes with a lot of its own challenges. So my own journey from being a secular Jew to being an Orthodox Rebbetzin helps me to have compassion for the changes that I see and what I document in the people that I write about. This movement towards Torah is, in my opinion, but I don't think I'm alone in this opinion, is unquestionably a fulfillment of Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah, chapter 8, verse 23. There's a verse, you're probably all familiar with this, that speaks about how at the end of the days, quote, 10 people from all the languages of the nations will take hold of the corner of the garment of a Jew, saying, let us go with you because we have heard that God is with you. This phenomenon, this Torah awakening among non-Jews, a part of which is explored in this book, Adrift Among the Nations, is unquestionably part of the unfolding Geula process. And that's why I named my publishing company Geula Watch Press. So my first book, which is called 10 from the Nations, Torah Awakening Among Non-Jews. It tells the stories of about 50 current and former Christians who are connected to Torah, connected to the land of Israel, connected to the God of the Hebrew Scripture, and to the Jewish people in various combinations and permutations. The second book on this topic is called Lighting Up the Nations. Lighting Up the Nations explores what is the responsibility the Jewish people have to those people from the nations who are turning to Torah themselves. The book in the Torah that I'm sorry, the book in this series that is not yet finished, the fourth one, is called Women from the Nations in the Hebrew Bible. And that book is still in process, but it'll be an exploration of 10 women that I picked in Hebrew scripture who were not born into the nation of Israel. And using rabbinic literature, using oral Torah, each chapter will expand on the story of a different woman far beyond what we know about her story from the biblical text alone. But this book that we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit different. So since 2014, I would estimate that I have heard hundreds of stories from people who grew up Christian and who find themselves drawn to Torah, some a little, some a whole lot. And hands down, the most emotionally wrenching of those stories are from people who have left the church and who have left Jesus behind. A small percentage of them will ultimately convert to Judaism, but most of them won't for various reasons. Many of them are literally adrift among the nations, meaning they've given up their spiritual home in the church. They've given up their identities as Christians, and they don't necessarily have something substantial with which to replace it. So I wanted to understand the challenges that people like that face in their journeys. So I looked for a book on the topic. And I found a book called Leaving Jesus. It was written by James Wood. And when I looked more closely at the book, it turned out to be more about distortions of Christian scripture than about the emotional and spiritual process of separating from Jesus. So it happens that I asked one of tonight's speakers, who I knew was on a journey herself away from Jesus, to recommend a book to me that I could better understand what this process was. And she couldn't think of a book like that. So she told me that she didn't think such a book existed. And so without really any conscious thought on my part, Hashem planted this idea in my brain to put together the exact book that I wanted to read. Now, when the idea crystallized in my brain, I had two thoughts. One was, oh, I can do that. I have the skills. I've done it before. I know how to do that. And the other was, there's no way I can do that. Not because I couldn't do it technically, but because it was too controversial. And I thought I would lose all of my Christian friends and colleagues. So I flirted with the idea for quite a while. I considered I considered moving forward with the idea, but I wanted to one of the possibilities that I thought about was to use a pseudonym, um, to publish it as a pseudonym. And instead, what I did was I waited 6 months and I talked to some trusted advisors, some friends and colleagues, in particular Donna Jolet and Ari Abramowitz, who helped me decide how to proceed. And then I went ahead and I began working on the book in earnest because I really felt like this was an important part of the story of the Torah awakening among non-Jews, and it wasn't being told. Now, the original working title of the book, based on the idea that people who leave Christianity behind but are not going to join the Jewish people have a introduce a spiritual void in their life. I originally was going to call the book Alone Among the Nations. And then Gabrielle Sanders reminded me that Alone Among the Nations is a paraphrase of a quote from the book of Numbers. If you want to look it up, chapter 23, verse 9, that identifies the Jewish people as a nation that dwells alone. And I didn't want the title of the book to refer to the Jewish people, so I changed the title. The book's structure is really pretty straightforward. It's actually it's the smallest of all the books that I've published, and I really urge you to read the editor's introduction first. The core of the book is the testimony of 10 women who were raised as Christians or who became Christians in their adult life, and who each of them left Jesus. And it examines the emotional, spiritual, intellectual, interpersonal, and communal consequences or challenges that they faced during that process. Now, this book launch was originally scheduled as a live event in Israel. Fortuitously, one of the contributors, Teresa Hutzler, who was one of the, I said that, one of the book's contributors. She was scheduled to be in Israel. And so I asked her to join the launch program, and then her flight was canceled. And so we moved the program to Zoom so that she could participate. Now, a side benefit of that is that most of the other contributors who come from all around the world are actually able to be online with us now. And when we get to the question and answer part of the evening, they would be, I'm sure, very happy to answer your questions. So here's how the next hour or so is going to proceed. We have 3 speakers lined up. After me, Teresa will share a bit about her journey and how the Jewish community either helped her or perhaps hindered her. Then Rabbi Eli Michel is going to speak about his work introducing the concept of a biblical Shabbat to the Christian world. And then Rabbi Yishai Fleischer will conclude the program with his proposal, which is presented in full in the book's appendix, regarding a robust alternative to a Noahide identity for those that leave Christianity and don't plan to convert to Judaism. Now, before I conclude my part, I want to give a special shout out to my own precious students. So every week I have the I'm very emotional. The very distinct honor of studying Torah with non-Jewish women from all around the world. And we don't agree on everything theologically, but we all love God, and we cherish the Bible, and we hold one another in great esteem. And it's a tremendous privilege for me as my part of sharing this Torah awakening among non-Jews, to share authentic Torah with them as best as I am able. So hi, you guys. Okay, what I'd like to ask is for Teresa to please unmute yourself and introduce yourself and go ahead and tell us your story.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Because I have new headphones, so I wanted to make sure that they work. I'm Teresa Hutzler. I don't want to take a long time telling you my entire story. It's in the book. I could be here for hours and hours and hours, going through my whole entire journey. I would have to start as a child and go all the way up until now. But what I do want to say is that, when Rivka asked me to speak, she asked me to talk about some ways that the Jewish people can help me, and they have helped me along on my journey, and then some ways that might be hurtful to someone like myself, or has been hurtful. And while my experience has been pretty actually amazing, I have talked to very, very many people along this journey that have had different experiences, great and not so great. And so um, I do want to say that I am very honored to be the voice representing the nations here today because I do take that into, I'm very honored that and humbled because I know that I don't represent every single person from the nations. We're all different. We're all on different journeys, but across the board, we all say the same thing. And so, and then I thought, how can I ask the Jewish people, or tell them how they can help me whenever you guys have gone through so much? I felt like I should be saying, how can I help you? Instead of saying, like, hey, here's how you can help me, little Teresa, right? And and then I thought, I don't want to be disrespectful, and say, this is hurtful. But at the end of the day, I thought of course, Isaiah 49:6, and I'll just read it. Is it too little that you should be my servant, and that I raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel? I will also make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. And at the end of the day, it's about Geula. And I realize that the Jewish people, they have a mission and a mandate. You guys have a mission and a mandate, and we all want redemption. And so conversations like this, I think, bring Geula, you know. And like Rivka said, if you know Rivka, she's about Geula and she's about, contacting us from the nations. And she's been a bridge builder. And what you may not know, or maybe you do know, since she said it, and since I think we're all about Geula here, is that there are a growing number of people like me. And we're not all the same, but there's a growing number of people that are aligning themselves with Israel, aligning themselves with the Jewish people, and seeing the truths of Torah, the wisdom of Torah. And while a lot of us have been on this journey since way before October 7th was a catalyst that has grown this even more. For all the suffering that the Jewish people have endured since October 7th, what it has done at the same time is it's cast a light throughout the entire world. And people have seen the Jewish light. And sorry, I'm not like a speaker, I'm not like a public speaker. So I'm just going to speak from my heart. And I hope that you guys can hear my heart and what I'm about to say. But for all the tragedy that the Jewish people have endured, what also happened at the same time is that it allowed the light of the Jewish people to shine throughout the earth. We saw your strength, your unity. We saw your resilience. We saw your love for each other, for the land of Israel. We also saw your love for Hashem and his commandments. And the best way that I know that the Jewish people have been helpful to me and so many others is by being an example. I can't think of a better way than to be a light as to be an example in what you have been, and continue to be strong, continue to have strong hearts, continue to do mitzvot, continue to model ethical and holy behavior, continue to make aliyah and settle the land. With inspiration comes light, which in turn reveals God's presence throughout the world. Know that you have a holy purpose. So I know that I've heard, I have many Jewish friends now, but I'm one of the lucky ones. Most people in the nations do not know a single Jewish person in real life. And so as they're seeing this, they're only seeing it on the TV or the news. And, but they have this draw and this pull and they don't understand it. And so they can't just pick up the phone like I can, or go to my online class with amazing Rivka. But they're picking up the phone and they're calling rabbis. They're walking into synagogues if they can and saying, hey, like, we don't understand this, but we know that God's with the Jewish people. Like what Rivka said earlier, with Zechariah 8:23, they're grabbing onto the hem of the garment of a Jewish person and saying, "We see that God's with you, and we want to come with you." I also have another scripture that I was thinking on, and it's Jeremiah. Sorry, I'm going to use the English words for the Tanakh. Jeremiah 16:19 through 21. O Lord, my strength and my refuge in the day of trouble. To you nations will come from the ends of the earth and say, only have our fathers handed down to us lies, emptiness in which there is nothing of any avail. Can a man make gods for himself, and there are no gods? Therefore, behold, I let them know at this time, will let them know my power and my might, and they shall know that my name is the Lord. And this is what we're seeing today. We're seeing these scriptures being fulfilled, and so because most people from the nations don't know any Jewish people, and I don't know that the Jewish community is ready or can handle the amount of people that are coming in. And so what I've heard, and I have experienced this myself, is here, we love and appreciate your support, but here follow the seven laws of Noah, and they're sent on their way. And yes, we do need to. That's not what I'm saying, but it can feel dismissive, and it can feel like discouraging, and so I know that that's not what it is at all, and that's not what I want. I understand completely why, but on the other side, I want to tell you a story of when we were in Israel. We were in Israel for Hanukkah this past Hanukkah, and we stayed through January. And when we were there, my husband wore a cowboy hat everywhere we went, and that's just who we are. If you don't know, my son, the one that was getting married in Israel, was one of the cowboys. And so we just attracted the masses. Israelis love cowboy hats. I will say that not only Israelis, but Jewish people love cowboy hats. So while we were there for almost a month, we spoke to so many people. And not only did they want to know where we were from, they were hoping we were from Texas, and kind of disappointed when we said we were from Arkansas. So I had to go back and say, I was born in Texas. We were born in Texas. But, and it opened up for us to be able to speak to. I can't tell you how many people. Rivka could testify to this. We went to her house for Shabbat, and they graciously had our family over, and we had 4 young men that we met at a bus stop that were so amazed with us and our story, because not only did they want to know where we were from, they wanted to know our story and our journey. And they had no idea what to do with us, but they thought it was amazing. Well, while we were there for Shabbat, we get a knock on the door, and these 4 young men just come in. Of course, Rivka invites them in, and we talked for an hour to 2 hours with these 4 boys from yeshiva. And they not only came on Friday night, but they came back again on Saturday because they were so intrigued. And everywhere we went, we were encouraged, we were loved on. Not only have we met them, but we continue to talk to them, and they have encouraged us on our journey. They have gone out of their way to make connections, because I know that for my Jewish people here, y'all are connectors. It's like the Jewish Connection Network. And so they have connected us and helped us on our journey. And it has made a world of difference in our lives. I cannot even say what an impression that it left on us. And so I would say that, being encouraging, getting to know people who are on this journey, if you can. I know that our worlds don't always cross paths, but it can make a world of difference in someone's life like mine. And so um, so I just wanted to share, not I cannot tell you, um, when we were in Israel, I realized I knew before that the Jewish people were a family, but you see it, and when you see it, you know. Well, those of us that are adrift are alone among the nations. We don't have that always the same thing. We're kind of just drifting out there alone. Um, but I will say that through the need for the non-Jewish people to start learning, there has been great online platforms that have been started. What Rivka does with us ladies is, I can't tell you how life-changing that has been. Um, like, I know that I would say this when I was in Israel to every Jewish person that I could, like, I don't know if you know how blessed you are that you are Jewish. I know that you suffer. I know that the world turns against you, but you are blessed beyond anything. You know, I get one drop of the truth of Torah and my soul lights up, just one drop, and you have the whole entire thing. And I know that not everybody's had Torah, every Jewish person has had Torah since their birth, but you have access to it where I feel like at times I'm just scrambling for crumbs, just one drop, just give me one drop, of the truth of Torah. And so these online platforms, I could say Rivka's The Land of Israel Fellowship with Jeremy Gimpel and Ari Abramowitz, and many others, the amount of rabbis on YouTube that we can learn Torah from. I could spend all day, all night learning Torah and having access to Torah where I haven't, like hasn't been in the past. And over the years, I've seen more and more. But at the end of the day, is it enough? Is an online community enough? For all that it is, and I don't take it for granted. Um, I can sit my family. I have 8 children, 4 are still at home. I can sit my family around a TV or a computer and we can watch and learn Torah now. But, who are their friends? Who will they marry? These are things that we think about. And, um, it's scary. I think that I worry about their future in some ways. I know Hashem is the one that controls everything. But it's something that uh, that we think about, a lot of us from the nations that are walking down this path. And I will tell you that sometimes standing with Israel and the Jewish people can alienate you from the rest of the world. And there are a lot of us that have we're sacrificed a lot as well, to stand alongside of the Jewish people, giving up friends, losing friends, family, um, community. And so it can feel very alone. So we're grateful for this online community that we can do. But in the end, I know that it may not be enough for long term. Um, but I wanted to say, sorry, there's something that I really wanted to get across in here. Not everyone from the nations can or wants to convert to Judaism like I am. Most don't, but what they do want to do is they want to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob alongside of the Jewish people. And like I said, many have given up everything to do so. Um, they want the love and the support of the Jewish people. They want to love and support the Jewish people any way that they can with no hidden agendas. Um, they also want acceptance and encouragement. which I know that I got, you know, and so, and I know that most of the time, most people do get, um, but yeah, so that's about all that I have to say, I think. Um, but I did write one more thing. Um, you can hear the footsteps of the Messiah, and I pray every day that he comes speedily in our days. And I know that this is, you know, the beginning of redemption, and that's it.
Teresa, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Um, I I would like to I'd like to say you touched on the topics of two of our next speakers. You talked about the importance of Shabbat, your particularly your Shabbat experiences in the land of Israel, but Shabbat in general. And I know that you do Shabbat of some kind with your family and have been for a long time. And so now I want to introduce Rabbi Eli Michel, who is going to help us understand. For Jews, this is a very bizarre concept that we associate Shabbat as something that belongs only to the Jewish people. And so, Ellie, if you would unmute yourself and let us see you.
I'm here.
Yep,
Can you see
you're
me?
good.
Okay,
You're good.
fantastic.
Okay.
Hey
All
everyone.
right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rivka, for having me. It's really an honor to be here and just amazing to celebrate your new book. You pump them out. It's really these amazing books, one after the other. And it's also really an honor to follow Teresa. That was just an incredible, incredible talk. And thank you for opening your heart with all of us. So I think we all recognize that we're living in this unprecedented times. On the one hand, things are terrible, right? The kind of anti-Semitism, it's even worse than people realize because of the work that we do at Israel 365. Like we're immersed in this, and within the Christian world, there's so many people who are turning away from the Jewish people now with all sorts of crazy claims that the Jews of Israel today are not the Israel of the Bible, and that's becoming popular. And so there's a lot of darkness out there. But at the same time, there's this incredible movement of non-Jews towards Torah and the people of Israel. And I'm kind of keeping that vague for a reason because right, it's not by and large conversion, and that's not certainly not what we are looking for. Right, we Jews are not trying to turn the whole world into Jews, right? That's not our goal, and that's important to state explicitly, right? We're a people. If everybody became right, we're much more similar to England or France than we are to Christianity or to Islam, right? The Jewish people are the people of Israel. We're a nation. Can't have everybody as part of our nation. That's impossible. Um, that said, right, our mission is that one day, right, and we have to work to get towards that point. And one day, all of the nations will know God and will know the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, meaning the God in the truest understanding. And so we have a role to play in that, right? We do believe that we're not meant to sit here passively and waiting for everyone to come. And one day there's going to be a great light from the heavens, and God will come down, and all of a sudden, right? Oh, they're all going to know that the Jews are not so terrible after all. That's not how it's going to work. That's not how God runs this world, right? We have a critical role to play, right? We have to be partners with God in redemption. But how we do that, how we bring the world to that day as Zechariah said, and as we've referenced before, that people are coming to us to study from us, right? How do we get there is a sensitive question. And I found a letter from Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, who is the great, I think the greatest thinker of modern times for the Jewish people over the last several hundred years. He died in 1935 and was the chief rabbi of Israel before there was an Israel. So Rabbi Cook has a fascinating letter that I came across, which has really guided me in what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to share the beauty of the Torah with the vast majority of the world, which is not Jewish. So he got a letter from a certain Rabbi Blumenthal in 1913, And this Rabbi Blumenthal wrote a book, which is fascinating. In 1913, he wrote a book for the Japanese, right? A book about Torah to teach the people of Japan. Okay. Now, the people of Japan were not by and large Christian. So we're really starting from scratch. So Rabbi Cook, he's so kind, but also firm, right? He responded very politely that he liked the book, but that it's not really good for the people of Japan, right? It's a nice book of Torah, but the way that this Rabbi Blumenthal was teaching it it was all wrong about the way that he was giving it over to the nations. And so he has three lessons that I took from that letter and that he goes through, which I'll share with you briefly, which I think are so important. First of all, he says that it's impossible to approach, right, a nation which is spiritually distant from us, except through what is explicitly written, right? You can't give all sorts of complex rabbinic teachings. You've got to go with the source, with the Bible itself. And that I think is, incredibly important, right? You've got to avoid using insider language and try to recognize and be respectful of the people that we're speaking to and recognize that, they didn't grow up with this, with hearing the sages, and to be selective and thoughtful in how we share and think about how it's going to be received, by the other. That's number one. Number two, he criticized this author for sharing, psychological theories in this book that were outdated, which I thought was very, very interesting. He said, you have to have real respect for the Japanese people, right? The people of Japan are a very advanced nation. The only way they're going to be able to hear your Torah is if you show them the respect, recognize that this is a very knowledgeable and educated people, and that and don't speak down to them, God forbid, right? And you didn't cross the bar, right? You've got to be really at the top of your game and speak in a way that they can learn from and respect. And you have to be educated. Don't just quote things from popular authors without looking up the sources and so on and so forth, right? Respect the people that you're speaking to. And this is something, by the way, which is important, even whether you're teaching, Jews or Gentiles. It makes no difference. My father is a very smart person. He got a free ride to Harvard for graduate school and wouldn't go to their graduation because even back then they were a bunch of anti-Semites. So my dad is a very smart guy, but he's always frustrated because he didn't grow up, like Rivka, he didn't grow up with a Jewish education. So he would go to a class on the Talmud and the rabbi, totally would use this insider language, that he couldn't grasp. I mean, he's a very smart person. First of all, you have to be sensitive to the people that you're speaking to, and not use language that they won't grasp. And secondly, don't speak down to them, right? If my dad would he had to choose between a class with insider language that he couldn't follow or a class that was too dumbed down. So you want to be not dumbed down. You want to be very, high level and respect the person that you're teaching, but do so in a way that they can hear. And finally, and this is the most important part, he said it's critically important. And here I'm going to read to you his words. He says it's impossible to present, this religious content, the content of the Torah, to people using expressions that might insult, right, the founders of any religion, whoever they may be. Right? We need to speak only about the holiness of God's Torah, and everyone from there will take what they will take. Essentially, he's saying it's not our job to go to people of other religions and to tell them why they're wrong, and say, well, here, look, Christianity is right about this, but here's why. Here are the three major areas in which you're wrong, and I'm going to prove to you why. That was not Rabbi Cook's approach at all. Right? He says that's not our job. Our job is to share the light of Torah, and people will take from it and will absorb it. And over time, right, they'll accept what they want to accept, and that's okay. Right? Nothing is meant to happen overnight. Right? That's not how this works. Right? We believe that redemption is kima, as the sages say. It happens step by step over generations. It will not happen immediately. And so it's not, if you're teaching people who believe differently from you, and they appreciate what you're teaching them, and it's inspiring to them, but they have certain fundamental areas in which they disagree, that's okay. That's okay. And in fact, it's not our job. And therefore, we should avoid those topics that directly touch on key beliefs of the other that and which negate those and which will cause, all sorts of fighting and argument. That's not our job, right? Simply to teach what we teach the full truth of the Torah and let it work its magic from there. Okay? So again, we don't deny that we believe that we are right, just as Christians believe that they are right and Muslims believe that they are right. And in every friendship with my Christian friends, I'm always explicitly clear about this. And I say, you can think that I'm wrong, and I can think that you're wrong, and that's okay, right? And we're open and we're clear about that. But what we will focus on and what you've come to me for, all right, and this is what I've seen, just as Rivka has seen so many amazing people from the nations thirsting for the Torah, and they want to learn it in the original Hebrew. They want to get it from the source. I'm experiencing the same thing. And so I focus on there's so much of Torah which doesn't have to be controversial. And by the way, if you know me personally, I'm a very controversial personality in general by nature. So this is like against my nature. I'm not looking for, I explicitly follow Rabbi Cook and try to avoid all conflict when it comes to teaching the Torah. Now, how does that connect to Shabbat? So last summer, I was traveling across America. I did a 3-week trip away from my family, which was a bad idea. I learned as a husband, not a good idea, split it into 2. In any event, right, I learned my lesson. But I did 3 weeks and I was really immersed in America. I went from everywhere. I was in Spokane, Washington. I was in Lubbock, Texas. I was all over the country in some amazing places and met so many unbelievable people. And what was fascinating, I was there to talk about really primarily about Israel, the war that we're in, and yet everybody wanted to talk about Shabbat, which was like a fascinating thing. So I talked about Israel, but I ended up talking a lot about Shabbat. I ran a model Shabbat Friday night dinner for over 100 people in Lubbock, Texas on Friday afternoon, but it was not walkable to where I was staying. So like about 10 minutes before Shabbat started, they're all sitting there having their dinner, finishing up, and said, everybody, Shabbat Shalom, I'm going to do the real thing. But it was amazing. People just wanted to learn how we do Shabbat. And they have no clue. I mean, no one ever taught them. And so they were stressing out about things they shouldn't stress about. I mean, it was amazing. I met a woman who was, she was having tremendous angst about the braiding of the challah. Did she get the braids right? I'm like, that's really, you don't have to worry about that. Like, not to worry. Even Jews don't have to worry about that. It's okay if you get the braids wrong, But how could she know, right? How would this woman know? No one's ever taught her, and she didn't know where to turn. And so when I came back from that summer, I wrote a book that I was not planning on writing. It's called Shabbat Revolution, A Practical Guide to Weekly Renewal. And what I did here in this book was really primarily the first half of the book, which is what they asked for, is a practical guide for a non-Jew to keeping Shabbat. Now, the hardest part of the book, I think, was the introduction. How do I frame this for the Christian reader, for the non-Jewish reader, right? I don't want this to come across like I'm trying to convert them, which I'm certainly not. So how to frame it, that took me some time, but laying out what does it look like, right? How does a non-Jew light candles for Shabbat? Do they recite the blessing? In the blessing, we say, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, right? You've sanctified us with your commandments, and right, and you commanded us, tzivanu. Now, can a non-Jew say that they're commanded? They can't. So, with the guidance of some of my rabbis, including Rabbi Yehoshua Pfeffer, who's really a wonderful rabbi in Jerusalem, and who's the official Israel 365 like religious rabbinic authority. So he helped guide me, and we put together a guide for non-Jews to Shabbat. And then the second half of the book is explaining really more why we do things and so on and so forth. So clearly this was uncharted territory, and it was fascinating. But I tried to follow Rabbi Cook's advice, right? Number one, where he said, be careful about using insider language and quoting the sages on this, that, or the other. And some of my Christian friends explained to me that, there's a suspicion that many Protestants and evangelicals in particular have to rabbinic tradition, right? Because they look at Catholicism and they say, where'd you come up with that? You made that up. And then they look at the Jews and they say, well, you guys made that up. What about we care about the Bible, the book. So, okay, I'm not here to argue with them, even though, of course, we believe in an oral tradition, and I fully believe in the sages' teachings. So what I tried to do was to include as many verses, biblical sources as possible, to show the source for all the things that we're doing. Not everything. There are a lot of things we do that are just tradition, but there's much of what we do has biblical sources. I was trying to be very careful to lay out as many verses along the way to show that our tradition is built upon the Bible itself. And that was really critical. Number two, I tried to, make sure that I was not in any way talking down to my audience. I did research, academic studies on technology addiction and all of these kinds of challenges that we're having in our modern society to show, right, to show in a level that's, look, I didn't know any of this. I'm not an academic, but I tried as much as possible to quote studies and these things in a way that was properly academic and serious, so that they would recognize that we're not, I'm not in any way, God forbid, talking down, and that Judaism is not some sort of outdated thing. And finally, no criticism, only light. Okay? I do not criticize Christianity in this book. Never, I'm not attacking any beliefs or practices. I'm simply trying to present the beauty and the wisdom of Shabbat. Rabbi Uri Shirky, who is one of the great religious Zionist rabbis of our time, he says as follows, right, based on Rabbi Cook, that we should take the supermarket approach. He said, let non-Jews browse through Judaism like a supermarket and choose the pieces that fit them. Meaning, for Jews, we would say, this is terrible, right? Absolutely not. You can't take the parts of Judaism that you want and get rid of the other parts. Sadly, that's what we call Reform Judaism. And I don't mean to attack anyone here, but I have many wonderful Reform Jewish relatives and friends. But Reform Judaism is a failure, right? It's led to complete intermarriage, and it's a disaster because it was supermarket Judaism. But for the people outside of Judaism, it's a different approach, right? And so I tried to lay out the pieces, and I was explicit about this. You don't need to do every last thing in this book. You are not commanded. The people of Israel are commanded to keep Shabbat, right? The nations are not. That being said, Shabbat precedes and predates the Jewish people, right? There was Shabbat before Abraham came to this earth, right? So Shabbat was there from the very beginning. Now, yes, we have a special relationship with Shabbat, and we never deny that. Of course not, right? The Jewish people have kept Shabbat, and Shabbat has kept us through generations. Yet, even though we have a special relationship with Shabbat, right, it doesn't mean that others cannot have a relationship with Shabbat as well, right? Sort of like I have a special relationship with my wife, but my wife can still have friends. I'm not an emotional abuser, right? I love my wife, but my wife can have other friends, and they can also enjoy my wife and spend time with her, right? And so that, I think, is the case here as well. Shabbat is something the world desperately needs, and we the Jewish people are not fulfilling our role if we are not doing more to give the nations of the earth what they need so desperately, what they're yearning for. And I saw they were demanding Shabbat. So yes, I had a different book that I was planning to write. I had to put it on ice, right? People are looking, and we have a responsibility. And I'll add just one last and final comment, which is I think that there's a difference between America, between Europe and Israel. Teresa's experience, and I don't want to speak for her, but I'm not shocked to hear that coming to Israel, right, she got a very different reception. And Jews here are much more open to working with non-Jews. Why? It's understandable. When you're a Jew living in America, when you're a Jew living in Europe, you're a small minority and you're on the defensive. So it's very hard for most people living in America to want to, it's just, you're in defense mode. You're like, just don't hurt me. Just stop telling me about Jesus and leave me alone in the supermarket, right? So I can just let me do my thing. We're on defense. But when we're back in our land, when we're here, we are confident and we are strong. We're now a regional superpower, right? Thank God. Now, after the last 2-3 weeks, we are clearly the dominant power of the Middle East, which is an astounding thing, and physically, and we also, and now we have greater self-confidence spiritually, religiously. We know who we are. We're not afraid anymore because we're here in our land, and that's why the verse says, "Ki mitzion Teitzei Torah," for from Zion will come forth Torah. It does not say from Boca Raton, there will come forth Torah. It does not say from Teaneck, New Jersey, there will come forth Torah, right? It doesn't say that. It says only from Zion, because only in Zion can we be the people that we are meant to be and finally get over our exile psychological, deep psychological problems from exile. And only now, once we're back in our land, can we be confident enough to do this. So that's why it's amazing. And I think Rivka knows that there are more Jews in Efrat here in Judea in working with Christians around the world than probably all of America combined. Right? It's just a crazy thing that even in this one little town, we have so many people. And that's frankly going to be the job of so many of the Jews here. I think particularly, right, all the Jews who are making Aliyah from all these other nations, right? That's why we're terrible at Hebrew, but we can speak English. And that's going to be our job in the years ahead. We have to be this bridge to teach the world. So Teresa, you shouldn't have to feel alone, right? And that God willing, there'll be communities of people, whether they convert to Judaism, whether they remain Christian, one way or another, right? We're all going to be standing together in the temple in Jerusalem. We're going to be very outnumbered, we Jews. There's going to be a lot more of them than us, and that's going to be great. And it's going to be wonderful, and we look forward to that day. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I so appreciate your contributions, because you tied together so many of my own experiences and so many of the experiences of people that I speak to as well. And you also made a tremendously great segue to what Rabbi Yishai Fleischer is here to talk with us about. Yishai, are you here? Can you unmute yourself? Hello, Yishai.
Yes, just one
Yes.
second.
Okay.
Let me put on my nice jacket here. My room is hot. I took off my jacket, and now I'll be with you. Hold on.
If you
Here we
have a
go.
shirt on, you can leave your jacket off. We're
No,
all
no,
cool.
it's okay. It's okay. I gotta maintain the look. You know what I mean? Okay. Am I on? Are we on?
You are on.
Okay,
Hit
great.
it.
First thing, Rivka, congratulations. A wonderful book and an important book, a contribution to the process of Geula, which you speak about. One of the things that you said that you said you're sure it's the process of Geula. I like that. And I think it's important to be sure about that. And I am sure of it also. At the same time, I think that, we are still in a process, and we have to make that into an offer to people. Join Geula, be part of it. And Geula is not something that, if you look at the word Geula, which means redemption, if you look at it biblically, then the word Geula does not mean something that happens to you. It actually means the act of redeeming a piece of land or a servant or somebody's been sold into slavery. It's an act. It's an act. Geula is not, it's not, maybe on the broad level, it's something that happens to us, but God's asking us to take responsibility. People throw out a lot of words like Mashiach. I always say to people, how about the word responsibility? Let's take a step towards what God wants us to do in this time and this opportunity that he's giving us. And he's giving us a time of great opportunity. I want to echo the words of Rabbi Eli, who's my dear friend and colleague, and that I'm coming at this thing not from a place of looking down at my many, many Christian friends. And by the way, I think of, the book is specifically titled about leaving Christianity, but there's also people who leave Islam or leave Buddhism and are trying to come to an understanding of the one God. This is not, on one hand, it is not an effort to disrespect other people's faith journeys. We have to respect other people's faith journeys. It's intellectually honest. It keeps it open. One of my dearest friends is a Dominican monk. The Turquemada was a Dominican monk. And my good buddy is a Dominican monk, and we laugh about it. And he is a truly God-believing person and a lover of Israel. And I love him and respect him. My good friends, for example, at Hayovel, are Christian believing folks, and they are my dear friends. I like to joke with them. I'm so close to them, I like to say that I'm grafted in. It's a little joke we have. Okay. But they love it when I say that stuff. But we share so many values. We share a lot of things together. At the same time, I don't think it's fair to totally water it down. I don't believe that the so-called New Testament is divine. I don't. And I've been offered ad nauseum on my YouTube channel. And any video that I make will have tons of folks trying to missionize me. And I sometimes want to say to them, like, missionize me to what? To what? To a very watered down, reduced version of following a faith path through the Bible, one that throws away all the commandments, changes Sabbath to Sunday, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of funny. And my friend Baruch Brenner has a very dear Christian friend, and Christian friend said, "Why don't you believe in what I call Uncle Jay affectionately?" And he says, "Why don't you believe in Uncle Jay?" And my friend Baruch said to him, "Well, why should I? There's been throughout the ages tons of people that have called themselves Messiah. And our Bible says to us, if somebody comes and says, I'm the Messiah or I'm a prophet, but tells us to throw off the commandments, don't trust that person. That's a false prophet." So to me, yes, I don't believe in Christianity. That doesn't mean I don't have respect for my friends who do. And at the same time, I think that actually loving fellow people is giving them an opportunity for a life path. And there's people on this channel today, on this program today, that have chosen to leave Christianity and follow some kind of Jewish path. In Rivka's new book, I try to make an offer. The offer that I'm making is towards Christians, also Muslims and others, and it's also towards Judaism and the Jewish state. My offer is that we should be making an offer to the Goyim, said in a positive tone, to the nations, of a Judaism for the nations. And I think that the Torah, and I think that Abraham himself was exactly trying to do that. He was trying to bring an understanding of the faith path of a one true God to the nations. And now that we're back in the land of Israel, and now that Torah is flowing from Jerusalem, and now that the covenant is being shown on the world stage, and now that God is revealing his hand, like in the 6-Day War, and we are in the period of the third temple, please God, it'll be soon. And that's what Rivka's saying. This is part of the Geula process. And my saying is, okay, let's make a serious offer. And my argument is that the Noahide system was not a serious offer. It was skeletal. It was what not to do. You cannot offer a Christian person coming out of the church a skeletal system and say to him, basically, I just don't want you to eat flesh from a live animal. You know, just do not rip a leg off a cow and eat it. It's not cool. And basically, it's a set of no's. Some people can argue that there's some positives in there, including courts of justice, establishing courts of justice. But generally speaking, the 7 Noahide laws are a skeleton system of what not to do. It's basic morality, but it's not a life system. It's not a faith system. And so we have a faith system that we could offer people. I think we have a faith system that we could offer people. And a lot of work, including Rivka's, has been, and I say this lovingly, tap dancing around the thing. I say that we need to establish something like Chabad houses for the nations. And what the nations want, and especially the United States of America. Why especially the United States? Because it's a place that's willing to adopt new religions and consider it. For example, Mormonism. Here's a new book. We're also Christians. By the way, parenthetically, a friend of mine said that one of the great ways to speak to Christians, if they give you a hard time about what they call the New Testament, be like, to me, as an Orthodox Jew, the New Testament is like to you, the Book of Mormon. It's just a book that's been added on. I don't think it's divine. That's a good one, a zinger, as we say. But in any case, we have a Torah that we could offer the nations. Now, the way that it would be structured, first thing is, the first aspect of it is the branding. I'm a branding guy. I'm concerned with branding. I'm concerned with Israel branding. I'm concerned with God branding. I think that, yes, we have to be, the Jewish people are to some extent the PR agency for God. We need to work to make God look good and to make him popular in this world. And I think that's what Abraham did. He started making God popular in this world. And we have to make God cool again. And that's our job. He's out there being very cool, but we got to make him cool in this lower domain. That's part of bringing him into consciousness. So the first thing is, before we go further, Noahidism probably as a marketing term won't work, because Noah is not the most sympathetic character. He ends on a quasi bad note, his story. Also, the hide part of Noahide. What does that mean? Is Noah hiding? Am I Noah's hide? What does that mean? It's not a. I just don't want to be a Noahide. It's not the sticker that I want to wear. I am a Noahide. I don't see that. And I think there's a much better term, which is so much more basic and also fits East and West, which is Abraham. Abrahamism, Abrahamic. In the essay that I wrote in Rivka's book, I say there's nothing more organic than being Abrahamic. And the church or shul or Beit Knesset that you're going to, it's called the House of Abraham. Where do you pray? Which church do you go to? Well, I don't go to a church. I worship at the House of Abraham, which is down the street. America can swallow a different religion. If they swallow J witnesses, Scientology, which is just wacky, or Mormonism, they could swallow the House of Abraham, coming from the most ancient and authentic people that know something about the Bible. You know, when you go to Texas, people love the Bible, not fakely, not doctrinally in such a way that they want to convert you. They just love the Bible, and they love Israel because their mama read them the Bible. And they're like, I think that the Jewish people coming back to the land of Israel is what was promised by God to Abraham. And I'm not making fun. That is actually the way people think, and that is right. It's simple. It's right. By the way, in Judaism, we laud simple faith, pure faith. Yes, I read the Bible. I think that what God is doing in the Six-Day War and even today is God's hand. By the way, I've been finding a lot of Christian folks, including musicians, who are saying, like, this is God's hand. I see that. And I think that's beautiful. Israel should make an offer of the House of Abraham. There should be a House of Abraham in Dallas, Texas, and there should be one in Idaho, and in North and South Dakota, whatever. The House of Abraham, what would it look like? It would look like a place that you would go to, and you would have what Noahidism never gave you, which is worship through a book, a Siddur. You would have fellowship with people who think like you. And it would also be willing to entertain you if you're still holding on to the so-called New Testament, if you're still holding on to Uncle Jay, but you want to explore, because they didn't let you explore in the church. When you started asking questions, they basically threw you out, or you never found satisfaction. Here you're going to find satisfaction. You're going to find satisfaction because this is the most ancient and well-based life faith system in the world. Okay? So the other aspect of it is that you're going to have something. What is one of the secrets of Judaism? And Rabbi Eli basically hinted to it. We Orthodox Jews, we live with a calendar. There's a living God, there's a synagogue, but there's also a calendar. Which Torah portion is it? What are we studying this week? Oh my gosh, the 17th of Tammuz is coming. That's a fast day. And then the 3 weeks all the way to the 9th of Av, that's a big fast day. That's a mourning period. And then there's going to be Elul. That's the time where we prepare for Rosh Hashanah. We live with that consciousness. My wife, forget about it. She's already cooking for Rosh Hashanah. You know what I mean? She's already in that thing. You know, and yeshiva kids are like, Elul is coming. Oh, Elul, that means it's a time for strong Torah learning and preparation for the so-called high holidays. So the calendar would be at the heart of the Abrahamic movement. And the other heart, of course, is Zion, Eretz Yisrael. People like Rivka and Rabbi Eli are going to be teaching you. And Ari and Jeremy with the fellowship, they're going to be teaching it to you from Israel using this thing that we're on right now, which is, hello, the older ones of us can remember what a big deal like just live television was. I still remember being in my parents' bed when I was a kid in Israel and having black and white TV just from Egypt because there was nothing else to watch, okay? We are now doing a live conference from Jerusalem. Hashem is bringing this technology in the world so that we can teach Torah from Zion. That's what it's there for. It's not there for little cat videos. It's actually there for this. It's there for teaching Torah to the nations. The other side of the offer is for the state of Israel. And this may not be exactly for this forum because you guys who's listening today are spiritual seekers trying to find a life faith, a path. And that's the heart of it, which is individual people finding a path to God and Israel and the Jewish people offering you that without shame, fully, a system for fellowship and ritual, and of course a trip to Israel and Torah from through the through this medium and the like. But I also want to make an offer to the state of Israel. Listen, beloved and much loved state of Israel, we have to have a thing that we offer. Okay, this is going to sound a little funny. I'm like a yoga guy. I do yoga once a week, and I've been doing yoga once a week or twice a week for years and years and years and years. It keeps me young and healthy, Baruch Hashem. But you know what? When you do yoga, somewhere inside you're like, I'm a little bit Indian, a little bit, this much. Like somewhere inside, I a little bit identify with that thing. If you like Guinness beer, right? You're like, somewhere inside of me is an Irishman. I'm a little bit Irish because I drink that Guinness beer, okay? And if you have a Czech car like I have, or a Czech gun, which I used to have, you're like I went to the Czech Republic. I'm like you guys. I have one of your guns and one of your cars, and I admire you guys, okay? And if you're, I don't know, like Van Gogh, and you're like, I'm a little bit Dutch, right? We have to have an offer to the nations, which is Israel's got something that you can be part of. This will make so many people more connected to Israel if they have an Israel religion. An Israel religion. Now, my first target is Texas, because when you go to Texas, there's people just flying the Israeli flag. Just because truckers, I've seen trucks with the Texas flag and the Israel flag, okay? Because they feel it inside. They want to be connected to Israel. Now, imagine if they had down the street a house of Abraham that they went to worship, to connect to the both Jewish holidays and even the Israeli holidays, because you better darn believe that the House of Abraham is going to also celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day. It's going to give you that. It's going to give you that life faith path. You're going to be connected to a calendar. You're going to be connected to Zion. And you're going to probably find more satisfaction, which you have not found in church, because you've got questions. It doesn't quite make sense to you. Why were the commandments dissolved? Why is Saturday on Sunday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Why do we have this weird tree in our house? That's seems like a little idolatrous on, during the winter months. What's that about? Et cetera, et cetera. Why are we celebrating Saturnalia, which is this, pagan holiday? It goes on and on and on. The point is that you're going to find fulfillment and satisfaction. And the state of Israel, like China, puts out these Confucius centers. Israel should be putting out these centers around the world. I want to give you just one more example, and then I'll stop here. I was through my good friends at Hayovel, I met these wonderful Mennonites. Okay, and they're an offshoot of what's it called? No, the Dutch, whatever. I forgot it right now. You know what I'm talking about? Amish, thank you. And so they're an offshoot of that. And I'm like, where do you guys live? They're like, Ohio. I'm like, well, how far from Cleveland? They're like, well, an hour and a half. I'm like, have you ever met with the Jewish community of these are pro-Israel Mennonites, which is itself a revolution. I said, have you ever met with the giant Cleveland Jewish community? They're like, no. They never reach out to us. They never talk to us. Not about God, not about anything. So clearly, the Cleveland Jewish community, which is very respected, and I have a lot of friends there, and they're an important community. They've never reached out to the Goyim. Maybe because they're the people that live amongst the Goyim. So basically, the controlling doctrine is Americanism and Jefferson and Madison and the Jewish person just exists within that whole society. But as Israel, we want to reach out to the Gentiles and give them Torah. The time has come. So many Gedolim are saying it. And I'm just saying, let's take another step. Let's do something so American. Let's franchise it. Okay? Let's make it into a franchise. Let's make it clear to people. Give them a life, faith direction. Give them a calendar. Tell them to face Jerusalem when they pray. Tell them what Torah portion it is this Saturday. Learn with them the Bible. Wow. And they're going to thank you because you're now being honest and open. And they're going to say to us, God is doing great things with you. And we're going to say back, indeed, God is doing great things with us and with you, our partners as well. Rivka, thanks again so much.
Thank you so much, Yishai. I really appreciate you being here with us. And that is the program that I planned with all of my really amazing friends. Yishai, you should see that the comment section was going crazy. I think what you had to say really touched a lot of people. And we have just a few minutes left to open it up to Q&A. If there is any Q&A, I think all of our speakers are still here. So if you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand and go ahead and share. There's okay, there's a lot of people are mentioning cities that they would like to see a House of Abraham in. So there's a lot of work to be done there. All right, is there anybody who would like to ask a question of any of our panelists? Now's the time.
Yeah, I want to ask Yishai Fleischer. You mentioned that Judaism is the most ancient system. Is it more ancient than Buddhism and Hinduism?
Good question, and I thought about it as I was saying it. Probably not. You know, the Chinese systems are very, very old, but we're talking about in the monotheistic systems of Abraham, and it doesn't matter. You know, we're not here. The point there is that people today are looking for authenticity. That's what people want. People are looking in a paradoxical way in the world of AI, where truth has become very, very malleable. People are actually looking for authenticity. And all I meant to say is this is a system that's 3,700 years old. It's really, really old. By the way, there is something like outside of Judaism, one of the books that I most respect is the Tao Te Ching, which is, you know, Taoism. And I think there is deep stuff in the Asian traditions. And in fact, the great story about a guy standing on one foot coming to Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai and asking them to convert him, I actually read that as somebody from the East coming with a yoga tradition, being like, I've mastered standing on one foot. Now can we graft Torah into whatever I already know? And Shammai's like, no, you got to do a clean slate. And Hillel's like, no, I can work with you. And his answer is very, very karma. It's like Judaism is karma. Here's the language that you understand. In any case, we have a very ancient tradition. Abraham's got it going on, and people want it today.
Thank you. I'd like to invite DNC Zoom. I don't know. You can unmute yourself, please. And I don't know what your real name is. I'm guessing that isn't
Hi,
it.
hi, I'm Judith. I am from the Netherlands. And here in the Netherlands, we have an organization called Dutch Noachide Community. And we organize meetings mostly through Zoom, but also live on location, sometimes for Dutch-speaking Noachides. We have a group of about 40 people that are members of our group. Thank you, Rabbi Fleischer, for your inspiring talk. Really great to hear that there is more Jewish people that are interested in working with us. And I was also wondering if you would be willing to cooperate with like a Noahide organization like ours, even though we call ourselves Noahide and not Abrahamic or whatever.
Just very quickly, of course. Of course, we're not here to knock other people, and we're here to love people. This is a really love movement. It's meant to share. It's meant to share the love of God. I'm proposing a new name for it, but it's not here to erase other people's hard-earned identity. And absolutely, Holland happens to have a special place in my heart. I spent a week in Holland. I know how smart the Dutch people are, and how funny, and how good the beer is over there. And I had a great time, and I just thought that Amsterdam and Den Haag, and when you go to a place, it really changes your perspective. And of course, our friend Geert Wilders and many others. So absolutely, I think there's, and I have actually Dutch converts living on my street here in Judea. And there's, of course, Rabbi Tzion down in Susia, and many great Dutch folks that are spiritual seekers. But there's so many. So bottom line is, of course, we're willing to cooperate with. We're here to love and teach and to strengthen one another.
Okay, and how can we get in touch with you?
If you're in touch with Rivka, you're in touch with like she's the mothership. You see that she's the heart
Good.
of around here. She's the center of gravity. She's the sun. I am just the moon here, and so it's easy to get in touch with us. But I want to be honest with you. Yesterday, I had a meeting with people from the Rabbi Cherki organization about this. But it needs more full-time people. It needs more full-time people. And it needs more people on the ground to say we want it. For example, all those people say we want it in this city. What I want to see is people saying, I want it in the city. I'm willing to start it in my basement. I want to have Shabbat meetings in my basement, like a Chabad house. That's how it starts. And say, I'm willing to do it. Now I'm starting it. Now give me the prayer books. I'm willing. Of course, fundraising is important because we're going to need those prayer books. We're going to need the chairs and the fellowship food. These are the plain things of prayer and of gathering. So people have to step up. They can't look to us right now. We don't have the capacity yet to do it big. Just like Chabad, everybody local has to start taking responsibility for it. So somebody in your community's got to say, "Oh, you already did doing it." We've got a house.
We're already here. We're
You're-
already doing it. Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. I want to learn more
Yeah.
about what you're doing to understand how it works.
Good. Okay. We'll be in touch. Thank
Bezrat
you.
Hashem. Bezrat
All right.
Hashem.
Pashali, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. So from Holland, I'm very close to you actually. I live in Düsseldorf, Germany, which is just across the border from Holland. And as far as I know, I'm the only one who is into this. So yeah, I would like to know where you're from in Holland. You can maybe write in the chat. But Rivka is my teacher, and I'm one of the contributors in the book as well. And I was very excited to read Rabbi Fleischer's suggestion for the Abrahamic religion, and I actually, as Abrahamic faith, and I actually read that essay on my way back from Israel just a few weeks ago. And I got super excited because I've had some problem with the term Noahide for some time. I don't know why. But my question is really, I'm a very active voice for Israel in my city, wherever I go. And I work a lot with the Jewish community, but in Germany, at least in my city, they are very, very liberal Jews, like almost no connection to the Torah. And then they just look at me and they're like, well, who are you? So you're not Jewish, but you seem to know a lot of Torah. So I kind of find myself in a very hard position. And I don't know how to navigate this because I'm not Christian anymore, but people still look at me as Christian, because I have been all these years. And then when they talk about converting Jews and loving Israel, but converting Jews, I have a tough time, So what suggestion would you give somebody like me who's really alone in this, who's still seen as a Christian, but is not at all, and who has no one around her who's following this? Yes, my husband is there and, but very lonely otherwise. Yeah.
I'd love to see Rabbi Eli Michelle answer this. My quick answer to you is, first thing is, welcome to the community. Here you are. You're not alone at all. Through the magic of this technology, you're not alone. And that's awesome. Second thing, you just met a person who's across the border. You guys have to get together. Thirdly, Reformed conservative Jews, liberal progressive Jews are probably not going to help you feel that great about things. I met years ago, I met pro-Israel Goyim, and I mean that as the word nations in Northern California. And they were like, we are trying to come close to Israel, but we go to this Reform temple and they accept us. But at the same time, we can't deal with their politics. We can't deal with the way that they're doing it. So I'm like, have you ever heard of this thing that's right down the street called Chabad? They're like, Chabad? What's that? And I said to them, there's this thing. Anyway, long story short, today, the big Chabad center in Northern California there has that Gentiles family name on it because they became so close that they sponsored the building of the thing and they found the place. My last suggestion before I hope Rabbi Eli takes over or Rivka is just to say, when you meet Jews, you got to say to them very clearly, I am a Torah believing Gentile. Hello, I am not a Christian. I am a Torah believing Gentile. And there is such a thing. And if they don't know, then they have to learn. Then you're going to have to be their teacher. Okay? There are Torah believing Gentiles, and you got to just say it. A lot of times here in Israel, I tell people when you see this, I tell your pro Israel Europeans that tour with me in Hebron, if the army stops you, just be like, I'm a pro Israel Gentile. Say it, because that way the army's like, oh, okay, okay. Sometimes you just have to identify yourself very loudly, very proudly, and people will understand. Don't let them beat around the bush, because you are, and I love you, you're weird, okay? You're not like the other people. So just own that. I am not like the other people, so I have to identify myself so people could start understanding. And when you do that, you actually grow the community. And I really hope that the friendships that you're made here today are going to be life-changing for you, B'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you very much.
Elliot, are you still with us? Do you want to jump on? Not sure if he's still here. Let me just say this in terms of where we are in our process. And when I say our process, you know, because we study together and we have a relationship already, but this is all kind of new in the world. Even though I have met Torah observant non-Jews, whatever that means, who have been actually eating biblically clean longer than I have been eating kosher. This phenomenon is really at its very early stages. And part of my work is it's two parts. One is I would like for the Jewish community to have a better understanding of people like you. So that and there have been people who have come up to me and have said, this is all very interesting to me. How do I get involved? And the truth is I don't have exactly an infrastructure yet to point them to. But there's also people like you who say, how what does the Jewish community have to offer? How can I become part of something that's bigger than myself? And I wish that there was, a more definitive answer, but I hope you take comfort from the fact that you and people like you, as well as the Jews that are on this call and the Jews who will listen to the recording of this call, understand that what's going on right now is new for all of us, and we're all trying to figure this out. So I write books and I teach Torah and I do what I can in my world, and you do what you can in your world. And I think part of this unfolding of the Geula process has to be that we're aware that this is a process that we're in the very early stages of. We are trailblazers, and we together have to work to figure this out. That's all I got. Donna, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna stand in for Rabbi Ellie because I work with Israel 365 and have for a decade now, which is amazing. Rivka and I met each other there 10 years ago, and they are actually in the process of developing what they're calling Israel 365 centers. They have one in Dallas, they have one in Chicago, they have one in a few different places. And so everybody who is interested in participating in that, you can send me a message, Donna at Israel365.com, and let us start trying to plow this ground as well. So that's summing up in a much less eloquent way what Rabbi Ellie would have said.
Thank you very much. All right, we have time for one more question. If there's anybody else with a burning question or comment that you would like to share publicly.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Ken Lee. Yes. I think that any viable, successful religion has to meet a variety of needs among people, that is spiritual, psychological, and social. So if you look at any successful, thriving religion, they provide people a place to gather every week for communal worship, sense of community. They also provide things like life cycle events. All right. People need a way to celebrate the birth of their children, when they get married, funerals, when they die. Every religion has this. You have to have this. They have rituals and ceremonies that are unique to their own. They shouldn't contradict Torah, of course, but this is something that is part of their life, part of their religious faith. Can have their own music. Tehillim can be set to music all kinds of ways. It doesn't have to be, what we do in shul. So without these things, a religion isn't going to be attractive to people.
Well, Ken, thank you very much. I think that's exactly that. One second, Ken, that's exactly what we're talking about. I think you're right. I think what you just asked was just another depth of drill down into what a life faith system, so-called religion. It's hard for me to say it's a religion because it's a kind of Judaism for the Gentiles. Yes, it's a life faith system, and I agree with you fully. And you've already started uh, uh, pulling out some of the things that need to be thought about, which is what does a Gentile bat mitzvah look like?
Or a wedding.
Or a wedding.
Or a funeral. Or they're not going to have a bris, obviously, but they can have something to welcome their children.
Well, don't discount. I was just recently at very pro-Bible, pro-Torah Christians, and they had a circumcision, and the rabbis were present there, and the rabbis, they had the way that they said it is, it commanded you, the Jewish people, to circumcise and offered it to us as well. And the rabbis, the Orthodox rabbis, were willing to have circumcision. They had Torah proofs for Gentiles. They had Torah proofs for that. So listen, Ken, it's a great and exciting process. I cannot tell you that we have all the stuff totally worked out, but I'm certain that if the Gentiles demand it and the conception of the franchise will start to open up, I am certain that we'll start to knock out what a Abrahamic bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, circumcision, wedding, funeral looks like. We'll start to knock out. We're going to demand from the rabbis to give us texts that, a lot of rabbis agree on. There's always going to be the disagreement. Welcome to being friends with the Jews, but that demand is exactly what's going to happen. What you're saying is exactly what I was thinking, which is like, this is what's lacking. It's lacking these kind of things. Yeah. And there are people who have worked on it. It's not like this is a total vacuum. Far from it. There are books of halacha for Gentiles. There's books of meditation for the nations, Rabbi Ginsburg. There has been a lot of work done on it. Now let's put it together. Let's put it together. You remember, let's get the manufacturing thing, the what do you call it? The assembly line going. You need a house. It needs a structure. It needs a gathering. It needs a time. It needs people to get together. It needs them to demand the questions from the rabbis. It needs the class that they go to, on Tuesday nights, whatever it is. And so it's a system, and that's exactly what we're going to be developing. What I wrote was the initial aspect of it, what it needs. What you're asking is course 102, not 101, and that's going to be exactly what the Abrahamic. The house of Abraham, the Abrahamic faith is going to develop for the Gentiles.
Okay, thank you so much. It is 9:00 in Israel. I'm going to cut this off because I know that some of us could talk about this for many hours. But I really want to thank Teresa and Rabbi Eli and Rabbi Yishai and all of you for joining. And if you are local, you will be able to get copies of Adrift from the Nations at the book fair on Friday morning here in Efrat. And if not, it's available on Amazon. And I really thank you for joining us. And I wish you shalom from Israel.
Thank you, Rivka.
Shalom.
Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.